Welcome everybody, I am Bridget Nzeku. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this roundtable. And this is why the talent skills problem needs a new approach. And joining me to discuss this very topical issue is Amitabh Apte, who is VP Global CIO at Mars. We have Sarah Mubashir, Head of Business Analysis and Change at the London Business School. And last but not least, we have Kieran Higgins, Head of Digital Workplace Transformation at Cisco. Thank you very much for joining us. And let's get straight into it. So, do you agree that we are in a talent crunch, or is the skill shortage more nuanced than that? What's your view? Sarah, from the London Business School's perspective.
I think, yes, there is skill shortage, but I think we are not looking enough, and I think we are not, I understand there are apprenticeship levies available, we are bringing in apprenticeships, but then some people feel that if you look a little bit deeper, they feel that they are barriers for them, especially when you look into it and you see that, oh, I need to have maths and English done in this country to be able to come and even apply for that apprenticeship. So we have created that barrier right there. And the other thing that I think is, which I feel strongly about, is that when we talk about the talent, we talk about people who have digital skills, logical skills, people who are intelligent, and people who fit into the mold that the organization really wants to see. But what about the neurodiverse people? What about the mothers who are looking to coming into work and they are smart, super smart people, but they know they cannot do the 9-to-5 thing. They cannot do, but they can do lots of stuff that they can offer. So yes, apprenticeships are there, government is doing the part. Are we tapping into, are we becoming, the organizations becoming the social anchor where you are getting in and speaking to, engaging with the local communities to find that kind of talent? Are we doing enough? And then creating the organization mold to fit and create the digital and physical accommodating and happily accommodating the people who exist. So yes, talent shortage exists, but are we doing enough? Are we looking where we need to look?
Your fellow panelists were nodding along there. Kieran, at Cisco, do you think there's a talent crunch, and do you agree with Sarah?
I think universally there is a talent crunch, and I agree we're not probably as creative as we could be on trying to fix it. We're using old approaches that have been traditionally used, and if you think about it, a lot of the new talent areas where we need skills, people didn't even know those jobs existed 10 years ago. So how do you train for them? So you're almost looking for a set of skills like intellect, agility, versatility, resilience, right? Those things are universal. And if you can then train them using the various methods, and that's a really good point. And you can open up where you source them from. I think we'll have less of a problem.
Amitabh, I'm a news journalist when I'm not at HotTopics, and we're always hearing about the labour force shortage, businesses crying out for skills. Do you agree that there is this talent crunch? Do you think Sarah's right, we're not looking in the right places, it is there, or is there a shortage of this talent?
I think your question is a bit more nuanced, and we need to dig deeper a bit. Talent crunch for what? So, speaking strictly from Mars perspective, or any CPG of the size and scale of Mars. So I look after all the regions worldwide for Mars Pet Nutrition, where we've got factories, R&D facilities, supply chain, logistics, sales, marketing. And not all the functions are asking for similar type of talent or similar scale of talent or similar skill of talent. Neither all the regions. So where you're seeing explosive growth, dynamic growth, the talent profiles which you need are a bit different. Where you have already a large scale business, which is, we have a term called as BAU, which I don't agree because there's no business as usual anymore. But nonetheless, the kind of skills they want are a bit different. They want scale players. So there's a scale versus speed. There'll be some markets where you need both. Now, where you're trying to scale the business from the existing functions, we do find that the expertise, the knowledge, the know-how which we have in the business is extremely important. So in that sense, we don't struggle that much because we have built that whole talent pool and that sort of a bench trying to kind of tackle on that. I think when you're looking at the dynamic new growth aspects, especially the digital in a go-to-market, most of the CPGs, not just mass, but most of the CPGs are going to the D2C conversation, direct-to-consumer conversation. Yes, that's where we need to have not just new talent, but new way of thinking. So I would agree that yes, there is a struggle to balance that, but I think it's a bit more nuanced than that.
I think that brings us really nicely onto this idea of how in your organisations, and then extrapolating out from that across industries and the wider economy, how you are retaining or retraining in order to fix this conundrum that many organisations face. And Kieran, from Cisco's point of view?
Yeah, I think in the tech industry, it was basically was like a hyper race to get to the talent, and has been for a number of years. And it used to be you went out and bought it, and if you didn't have the skills, you flipped it over and went out and bought it. And I think now, like you said, which is a very good point, knowing the culture and the fit in your company is absolutely essential. So if people are willing to make that jump, then the retraining and refocusing of people is really, really important. And having programs structured in a way that they can comfortably transition from one skill set or one set of skills to another is really, really important.
And how at Cisco, what have you observed, or how at Cisco have you put that in place?
So software development is a huge thing for us. Security, I think right across the globe, those two areas are short of people and have been for quite a while. I think we are actively allowing people to change careers, giving them the support they need in order to get there. It's kind of interesting. While we're doing that, you look at something like low code and no code and ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is changing a lot of what those skill sets need to be. So the traditional software development degree that you had to do in order to be capable for that is changing. So I think we need to change and move quickly with it.
So you're actively investing in your teams,
yes,
so that they can develop and fill the requirements that Cisco might have now or in the future.
Exactly.
Good. I'm quite good at summarising. Let's see if we can get some more agreement. What about at the London Business School? I mean, obviously you have the school itself and the operations that you are involved with, and then you have a lot of businesses sending their people to you. What have you observed about how external organisations are dealing with this, and how is the London Business School dealing with it?
I think there are three different layers. Like you're saying, that people obviously come to London Business School to get into now AI and sustainability, and we are trying to obviously offer what people are after. And then the other layer is about operationally, what is it that we're doing? So obviously we have a great apprenticeship program. Danny's sitting right there. So great apprenticeship program that we have created. We're bringing in people getting retrained, and we are putting them back in. Then there are other things that we're doing, I think, at our own leadership level, where we are offering open our people, especially the people in digital skills, are offering, and even students are joining us to volunteer. And we are bringing in people from the local communities, and we have an open house, and they come in, and some people are asking for, how do I look for a job? How do I train? How do I do this? So we are offering that. We are doing it. And another thing, we were having a conversation yesterday, was about creating a talent pipeline. But the pipeline, then yes, there are student clubs, there are groups, there are marginalized communities, but then they are going and tapping into the people who have their barriers, and how do we break that, and how we bring people, like I've mentioned, neurodiverse, mothers returning to work, people who have retired from military, or anybody who is ready to come and may not be able to fit into the 8 hours, 9 hours. But then I think it's on the personal level as well, and what I have learned or I have felt is that when I have gone in and made flexibilities and accommodations for people, it's a win-win. They have been more creative. They are ready to retrain, rescale, wherever you send them. So I think, it's a multi-layered thing. You're not going to win by bringing in one program. But I think it's a really win-win for organizations, for people to move from their defensive mindset that, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job because skills are changing, to moving them to a creative and safe mindset. That yes, we know you're training and you are accepted as the whole person.
Very interesting. You've both described, I'm going to put this to Amitabh now, you've both described either pivoting a bit as an organisation to change your approach to talent, or allowing employees or other external partners or agencies or freelancers, the people we work with, also to pivot and to retrain. At Mars, is that what's happening? Is there this pivot? Is that happening now because we're post-pandemic and the work market looks different, or are we at this kind of technological revolution or evolution where we have machine learning and things changing jobs? Sorry, that's 5 questions in one question.
No, that's fine. So I think the approach which we have taken is that of an ecosystem. So we don't live in isolation. Our companies don't live in a bubble, right? I mean, we are always interacting with partners and third parties. So coming back to Mars, we are also manufacturing our own goods. So we have to work with the supply chain partners. So raw materials, finished goods, and so on and so forth. There's a whole partnership model. We work with customers, the retailers, the direct online customers, and so on. So that's the ecosystem. If you come closer to home, from a tech perspective, we work with tier 1, tier 2 partners, probably a dozen of them. So that's the ecosystem. So that brings you the scale. But I think I go back to my point of the culture and what culture which we bring, and many organizations have their own cultural identity. We have to make sure that fits that cultural identity and that paradigm. Because there's a reason why, Mars is one of the largest family-owned businesses, and the reason why it's gotten the point in terms of scale and size. So you have to make sure that you are going towards that speed and different sets of diverse views, but take your people with you. So I think that's a sliding scale. So what we are doing is a number of approaches we are implementing. There's apprenticeships, as you mentioned, is very key. Hiring new talent and looking for obvious shallow pools of talent where everyone is kind of searching for. But I think the biggest trick which we cannot miss is our existing talent pool. And the people who know our processes, how the business gets done, and if you empower them with new tools, then they go places. And that's what you actually want to bring. So that's the sort of thing which works. But I think coming back again, this is not just a problem for you to face as an individual, as one company, but you have to tap into the ecosystem. And we find that ecosystem and the mutual beneficial approach of doing that, where everyone wins, I think that is the sort of a answer we are getting to.
Very interesting that you identify these 2 pools of talent, the people coming into Mars or Cisco or London Business School, and your existing talent. And actually there's been quite a government push, hasn't there, to bring older workers back into the workforce. In terms of those who have had a career in your organisation for some time, what new skills are they training in? What are they developing so that they can give you another 10, 20 or more years where they're fulfilled and it's dealing with the business challenges and opportunities you have? Can I come to you, Sarah?
I think for us, we have, and obviously under our CDIO's leadership, we have created a time in everybody's calendar for you to learn. And if I go, I started industry 15, 20 years ago, don't guess my age. And yes, it was IT and, it was all of that. And cybersecurity or, these things would sit with a certain team. But now we are talking about the people who have been here, it was never their interest, but now everybody needs to know about cybersecurity, your digital skills, and all of these things. But I think it's like a group, it's like a new community that we are forming to say, yes, we are all learning. This is my learning time, and not feeling and then sharing and being that vulnerable to say, I never knew that, but now I'm learning it. But I think it's creating that time and space, and like you're saying, recognizing that it's our own people as well that we're going to invest in, and then yes, be flexible enough to accommodate what exists.
So that's another example of investing in developing this talent pipeline. Does it work like that at Cisco? Do you have dedicated learning time, or do you send people off for sabbaticals? How do people...
I don't think we've specifically dedicated learning time. We do have certain, mandated and expected things that we need people to absolutely be up to speed on. And given a particular skill set, then there'll be things you need to have achieved in that area. And then there's a challenge which kind of fits really well with the current generation. It's almost like a gaming thing. You get to the one level, you get to the next level, and if you can set up gamification of your training, that works pretty well. So I think it's a mix. And given that we currently have more generations in the workforce than at any point in history, I think you have to tailor it across the whole workforce. To your point of people coming back into the workforce, I think there is a talent war, even if we don't want to admit it. And in order to be able to engage that maximum target to get the right talent on board, I think you need to try everything, right?
I'm going to put together two ideas you've mentioned there, which is the idea of the gamification of training and the talent war. I mean, with younger workers coming in, Gen Z and younger, they'll be very familiar with Fortnite and COD. Do you think that that's one of the best approaches for newer talent? What are their expectations? What are you seeing them come into you saying when they join Mars? What are they saying about how they want to train, how they want to develop?
Can I go back to your previous point though? Because that, and I will link your question to that one. So the way I differentiate between the talent and skills, which was your previous question, I look at that as essential soft skills for life and business. And then there are essential hard tech skills which you need. So these are the two kind of frameworks which I operate with. In the first one, what we focus on, and let me link it to the second question, even if the new talent coming in, it's a must for them. So things like, what we did in the past 5 years is we kicked off agile training programs throughout the org. So we ran brown bag sessions, formal training sessions. We initially trained the trainers programs, and then our own people did it. So the agile ways of working, not just for project managers and scrum masters, but for everyone, agile for everyone. Second, which is pretty cool a few years back, a lot of people are not talking about it, but I think they should, which is design thinking. So how do you apply the principles of design thinking for everything you do? Not just for software, but you're sorting out your next generation supply chain networks. It's the same principle. So design thinking was very important. Third thing, which probably is the most important for me, is the UC, is the user centricity. So how do you put the user of the system at the heart of it? Now, again, if you're a supply chain, you're probably looking at a 3PL, 4PL player as your consumer. If you're a sales and marketing, you're looking at the Walmart as the D2C channels as your customers. Doesn't matter. But UC, the principles of understanding UC is very important soft skill. So whether it's existing Martian, as we call them, for 25 years, or it's a new person coming with 25 weeks, these are the life soft skills we have to have. Then comes the cool, jazzy, sort of new gen tools, which are going to be exploding these days, right? Gen AI and Meta and LLMs and machine learning and AI and APIs and digital services. Again, I think you have to ask a question, does everyone need to have, awareness is a good thing, but then we're probably going to look at subsets of key teams which will benefit from that, solving that day to day. But I think it's kind of a dangerous trap for a CIO or any tech leader to say, hey, I'm going to get all my people to jump on the API bandwagon or AI or Jet. Well, to do what? To solve what problem? Then you come back to the basic soft skill frameworks, which is user centricity. What does the user want? Otherwise, the risk here is you will have lots of fancy projects which kind of go nowhere. You know what I mean? I think that's what you need to balance out.
Interesting. Obviously, I could talk to you all day, but we have limited time. I'd like to open up questions from the audience, if there are any, and we'll continue if not. But would anyone like to put a question to any of our panelists? Yes. And could you tell us your name and your organisation?
Sure. My name is Roy Dockery. I'm from a company called Flock Safety in North America. My question for you all and just the leaders to think through here, how are we, especially with upskilling, retraining, how are your organizations strategically investing in training? I actually don't think we have a talent gap. I've been saying it for the last 7 years and haven't had a problem hiring people for almost a decade. We have an experience gap. And so if anyone uses the military as an example, they never run out of airplane pilots. and they all hire high school students. So there's a way that we can progress that. So how are you seeing differences in how we're training people, or how you're looking to train people in the future so that you can bring in those different generations of talent?
Kieran, can you ask that first?
I think for Cisco, we're probably starting earlier in that traditionally we would have done the milk round, graduate talent harvesting, if you want to call it that, right? Now I think the straight out of school apprenticeships we're seeing a benefit in that you put somebody through a degree apprenticeship for 3 years and you bring in a graduate after those 3 years and compare them side by side. They're so far ahead just based on basic business experience, like you described around the soft skills and the core skills you need for life. Now, they've worked probably a little bit harder maybe than I don't know, maybe they haven't, right? But it feels like they have a lot more experience at that point. And if we have a crunch and we go a little bit further back and say, all right, come and be a part of what we do, work with us and learn at the same time. I think it, to your point of the military and the teenagers, I think it's probably a learning we've had that is a benefit.
Anything you'd like to add, Sarah?
I would like to build on a little bit. Absolutely agree. And yes, the workforce and skills that people get. But I think you mentioned a little bit about the training and strategic training conversations that we have. We have recently started doing one thing for past 1 year, which is great, where we have conversations with people to say where you want to go, what you want to do, instead of to say what is your career within that organization. And that, as much as giving an insight into what they want to do, it is also helping us identify what skills gap we are going to have in the next 2, 3, 5 years. So yes, succession plans and these things have always been around. But I, as a leader and as a manager, I love those conversations, because then people are telling you, I want to go and do this, and which is completely different to the things that you are actually putting them on. So this is one thing that we have strategically started to do.
Amitabh, were you in agreement, or were you provoked by the gentleman's point that there is no talent gap?
I think it depends, doesn't it? I think it's not one answer for all organizations. I think it depends. I mean, I'll tell you that in Mars, we've got probably a dozen cultures operating, and hence the dozen situations in one business unit, right? Because the P in India is going to be working very differently with P in Japan and P in North America. I cannot say talent gap exists for all or not. It's a very individualistic thing. I think, if I may, I'll give you some specific answers what we have looked at. So we have built catalog of sort of courses and tools. We're very fortunate to have Mars University in-house to do that. But even if you don't, I think you can pretty much replicate that model. So we have built a catalog of courses, skills. Some of them are short, some of them are long-term, right? We have leveraged platforms like LinkedIn, for example, not to endorse LinkedIn here, but there are many other platforms like LinkedIn to kind of bring that in, that train the trainers. We have leveraged our ecosystem partners. Most of our tier 1 to tier 2 partners kind of bring that technical. So I think it's that. But I love what you said, is that thing in isolation doesn't work. Where it brings magic is exactly the point you talked about, which is linking. And this is where the line manager ownership kind of needs to step up. This is a conversation for career path and where you want to be, right? Because again, the risk here is you'll get kind of bamboozled by, I want to go for this. Really, where do you want to be? What do you want to know? And then connecting that. But dare I say, not many companies kind of make space for that, and not many line managers are aware of it. So I think you can have all those tools, but I think that ownership, and it's a beautiful point, actually. I just want to make sure that works for all.
Thank you. Yes, before we move on to the next question.
Yeah, no, do you believe that many early in career candidates or employees know where they want to be? Because what I see a lot of is, I want to try everything for a while until I work out where I want to go.
I did that. Tried everything.
You know what? One thing which I've noticed, and not sounding, not giving my age here, what I'm really surprised is how much clarity the new joiners are bringing to the org. That's amazing. Really very, very well articulated way, the vision where they want to be, and also their ability to be flexible. So I think they bring a lot of new ideas and clarity, which probably 25 years back, I didn't know, right? So, But I think the point you're making is it's opening their eyes to the possibilities, because when you are fortunate to working in business, like, hey, you just want to be a cool digital marketing tech person, but do you know that supply chain actually brings a level of complexity which you will, and sometimes they don't know that. So I think, again, going back to line manager aspect, it's your job to open up their frontiers for that.
I'm just going to open it up to any quick fire questions, because the panel will draw to a close shortly. Any more questions? And I'm going to ask everyone to answer in about 30 seconds max. Doug? Mark Chillingworth, of course, yeah.
What do you see? We're seeing places like Lisbon and Barcelona, huge investment from the public sector in education to drive skills there, and we're seeing all sorts of organisations, many of your rivals, Nestle, Danone, etc., going into those markets. Do you feel we're falling behind in other economies of not taking that approach?
Oh, that's a very good question, particularly in a pre-election period. Yes.
I wasn't trying to be political.
Sarah, can you answer first?
I think I'm going to go back to where I started from.
30
30 seconds. It's like governments is providing things, but organizations need to become that social anchors, get into the local communities, and then get that funding going through that way. Yes, we need to do a lot more to plug in back, give in back, and train people, and not generate the people who are coming back into the jobs and they have so many loans and debt on them. I mean, where would your creativity go from there?
Thank you very much. Kieran, 30 seconds. What's your answer?
30 seconds. Yes, we are probably falling behind, but I don't think you put it on the government. I think the companies who need that talent should be doing just as much work on that. 30 seconds.
Nice, very concise. Amitabh,
I think, Mark, this is about we having the clarity as an org to know what we want. If we go for a generic, I want digital talent, well, what does that mean? Whereas if you're specific, saying, actually, I want to bring in a digital marketing, D2C, consumer, then there are hubs actually available, yes. But I think that clarity is missing sometimes.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's close on our final question, which is looking ahead, looking at the economic landscape, the technological landscape, thinking about your own organisations and the sectors you're in. What are the key skills you think you're going to be investing in the future for your teams or anyone coming in? If you had to pick one or two things, what would they be?
I think security will still be there. I think software development will be less so, because I think artificial intelligence will help us a lot with that. And I think AI itself and having skills in that will be key.
Amitabh?
I think, look, the obvious answers are the AI, the cybers, and all sorts of things we talked about. And probably there are more qualified people here to talk about it. But I'll go back to my soft skills, because those are the skills for life.
Yeah.
If you don't sort out the UC and agility, these are just tech tools. So that's what I'll focus on, absolutely.
And from a London Business School perspective, you've got the last word.
I agree with both of them. Yes, absolutely. The hard skills and the soft skills. But yes, if somebody has the logical and has the adaptability, strong adaptability, then yes, why not?
Thank you all very much. And can we have a round of applause for our panel? Thank you.
Thank you.